Y'all getting here and you look at PJ Zuko.
But yeah, come
got
on.
The fresh haircut.
See, now you can. Yeah, come on. We're all ready now. We're good to go.
Got the flannel going on.
It's perfect weather outside. Let's be real. Like, to me, this is peak South Georgia weather.
I mean, it's
peak
pretty
weather.
nice.
Period.
It's pretty dang nice out there.
Yeah, it's incredible. And this ain't a weather show.
I should be golfing right now.
There's better things to do.
What would you be doing right now?
Anything but golf.
All right, well, PJ's there. All right, so I said it was going to be a little bit different of a show, obviously talking about the national championship, but just from a different perspective, we're going to have some fun. We're going to do a little Monopoly gambling, we'll call it.
Oh, yeah.
I like what Mike Greenberg says. Whenever he does a gambling segment, he says, you should never bet with money that you can't just forget about. True. So we will steal Mike Greenberg's line there, and we'll say that. If you should never gamble with money that you can't just burn and forget about it and not have to worry about it. So we're going to preface it with that.
I should never gamble. That's what I got from that. How about
PJ? You're like,
how about you?
Yeah, I should never ever gamble. Ever. If somebody wants to give me some money to gamble, I'll say I gambled with it, but then go ahead and throw that in the savings account.
But that's the thing. Even then, it's like there's uses for this that I could very much.
It's like when the grandparents give you the money, they're like, "Go have some fun." You're like, "No, paying rent."
Yeah. My gas, like next gas tank, next fill up sounds good.
That's fun. We appreciate that. No, we're gonna go and look at some lines, and we always do this around the Super Bowl, but I like it for the national championship because I also think this is a good way to preview games a lot of times because it really tells you what you're thinking. Also, while we're talking, there's a child looking at us through the glass who is wearing a Baby Yoda shirt and just stuffing his or her face. They're at that age where you're not sure.
Yes,
got a sweet mullet going on.
Great mullet, peak peak baby look. Let's be real.
That's peak fashion.
That's a style.
No, that's peak fashion in 2022, right there. Baby Yoda sweater on, got the chacos on the feet, got some chinos on, and a mullet.
That's all I'm saying. Because when you're
a baby is more fashionable than I am.
Like when you're a baby, no one cares what you wear, right? Like you wear whatever you wear whatever you want.
Things change.
That's what I'm saying. People are like, oh, the cute baby, whatever, and. Let's be real clear about something. There are cute babies, and then there are very much not.
Wow.
Okay. Wow. Let's cut out the lies.
PJ's out here. Have you had this on your heart for a while?
Let's be honest. I've always heard that from when I was.
Have you seen a baby before?
And
you're like, wow, that's an ugly baby.
Nah, that's an alien. What are you talking about? That's not a cute baby.
Do you think Kevin was a cute baby? Do you think Kevin was a cute baby, or do you think the doctor was like, woof, look at that thing?
It's not finished yet.
Actually spanked Kevin twice just because of how ugly he was.
Probably.
Once to make sure he was breathing, and then once just because ugh. All right, now let's get into some of these. So we got a bunch to get into today. I have another theological question.
I was going somewhere with that.
Okay, go ahead.
All I'm saying is
tell me how ugly babies tie back into the national championship.
Not only that, all I mean is you can wear whatever you want when you're a baby, whatever. That baby woke up this morning. He said, "You know what? I'm looking good. I'm looking fresh. I'm wearing peak fashion today, not just going out in anything."
Seems to be eating some sort of Chinese food.
All right,
which is just wonderful. Anyway, so let's get into some of these lines. We have some just the regular prop bets that you hear all the time, and then we have a bunch of player prop bets. And I think this can kind of tell the story of how we think the game's going to go. It's just coming at it from a different perspective. We can do the whole the theories of Kirby Smart and Nick Saban just owning real estate in his mind. Can he get past that? Do the Georgia players have a mental hurdle to get over with Alabama? Yada, yada, yada. You can listen to literally anybody do that anywhere. Just face a direction.
Yep.
Or get on the internet, and you can find that show. No problem, right? What we're going to do, go through some of these prop bets. First one, I want to start with PJ. I find this fascinating based off of what we saw during the last game. The over-under for this game, 52.5.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, Alabama almost scored that much by themselves.
Yeah.
In the first game. Goodness gracious. I didn't even I didn't even mean that as a dig. I was like, but
last two times Georgia and Alabama got together, 65 points.
Well, I think so. When you have games like this, with really good defenses, really good just teams in general, I'd say, I'm not going to get into that. It can go one of two ways. So that's kind of how I always see it is it's either going to be a score fest or it's going to be 10-9. right? It's going to be like 13-7, and just both defenses show up and play out of their minds. And maybe you see that too when teams are a little bit too tight. I don't think either of these teams are going to be that. But yeah, I would. That is a little surprising. We're making our choices here, right? Yeah. I would take the over on that because I think these two offenses are probably too talented, to slow down that much. Especially like I think, for instance, I think Georgia's defense is going to have a really good performance, but Alabama's still going to score points. Like you just got to be able to slow them down, not necessarily stop them altogether. So yeah, I'll take the over on that.
I think it's interesting. Alabama comes into this one averaging 40.9 points per game. That's good for number 4 in the country. Georgia comes in averaging 37.7 points per game. This is a good line because you look at it, and I think from the Georgia fan perspective, if it's somewhere near this line, you feel like Georgia's got a really good shot to win that football game, right?
Agreed.
The closer it gets to 60, I think the more worried Georgia fans start getting, because that starts meaning the games that start getting up towards 31-28, stuff in that realm. So I think the closer to this line for Georgia, the better. Means your offense is putting up some points, but at the same time, your defense is able to come up there and put up a better performance against Alabama, or it can mean the complete opposite of that, and it could be 42-10.
Yeah. Right. And it could be 42-10 for Georgia. Like
no, it is not.
No, I mean, I just
happen.
I don't know, man. I think I don't know.
If that happens, it means Bryce Young misses the plane, Jamison Williams just opts out, and then Georgia's history against backup quarterbacks doesn't come back to get them again. I'm gonna go with the over on this one, but slightly.
Yeah.
I don't think this is one of those ones where you blow it out of the water with the over. I think I'm going to go over, but slightly. And I just don't want to live in the world where I bet the under.
Not a good time. No one should.
All right. I think this next one's interesting too. Highest scoring half. Right now, these are all courtesy of Caesar Sportsbook, Williams Hill, right? Highest scoring half. First half, second half, or at plus 1,300, you can say the score will be the same.
Ooh.
Or the amount of points scored will be the same.
Goodness gracious. How many people are taking that? Ooh, I would say second half. I think
that would go counter to what happened in the SEC championship. In the SEC championship, there was 37 points. No, more than that. I can't math.
I mean, Alabama really blew up in the second
41
quarter,
points.
Yeah. I would say second half. I think we're going to see a little more of feeling out in the first little bit. And yeah, things will get scoring there in the second half. But I think really once you go in, make those adjustments for both teams, maybe find something special. And then here comes the back and forth. Like we saw a few times with Alabama and Clemson. Like I think we're getting ready for that type of matchup. So I'll go second half.
I'll again say if you are a Georgia fan, you are hoping it's the second half, because if it's the first half, what does that usually mean, right? The first half of Georgia-Michigan, Georgia dominated that game and just kind of ran the clock out in the second half. Cincinnati, Alabama, pretty much the same thing. SEC championship, same thing. Alabama dominates in the first half, goes on that scoring streak, and then comes back out. And Georgia only scored 7 in the second half, but Alabama only scored 17 in the second half. So It's just they kind of milked the clock away, and that pick six pretty much put everything to bed. So if you are a Georgia fan, I think you got to hope it's the second half.
Yeah.
And I think the last thing Georgia fans want is to see them get out to a 10-point, 14-point lead real early in this game, because then you're like, oh, no.
Yeah, right. How do we respond to this?
No.
How do we stop this train
I'm
from
saying
rolling?
Georgia fans don't want to see Georgia get out to an early
No, you're right.
10, 14-point lead.
Because, I mean, that's –
What were you, 21-7 in the 2018 SEC championship? You were up early on Alabama in 2020 in Tuscaloosa, and you were up 10-0 on Alabama in the SEC championship game.
That, and it's not just Alabama, right? I mean, we saw it in, Florida, Georgia last year?
Yeah.
Georgia gets out to a good run, and then all of a sudden,
lead,
Florida starts steaming back.
I'm just more thinking of Georgia
For sure.
against Alabama. In these big
Strictly,
games.
yeah. I get it. Yeah, for sure.
But I'm gonna say, I'll say the second half. I think the second half is the higher scoring of the two halves. I think you're gonna see a different Georgia defense in this game, and so I'll go with them coming out able to lock down Jamison Williams because John Mechie's not there now, because Jamison Williams isn't still just as good as he was.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get into the halftime adjustments. You see both of those offenses come out in the second half. I think you see a lot more points there in the second half. All right.
Like, I think Alabama's going to find an answer, but it's all about Georgia being able to counter it. So, yeah.
Now, I do like the one where it says or the next one here, because it's first score.
Yeah.
Is it a touchdown, a field goal, or at plus 4,000, a safety?
I kind of want to take that. That'd be amazing. I'll go with field goal, actually. I'll go with field goal. I think, it takes a couple drives for both teams. Like I said, it takes a couple drives for both teams to go back and forth a little bit. And then, either Alabama or Georgia connects on a big play or two, puts together a solid drive, but isn't able to punch it in the end zone. Maybe Georgia holds strong there inside the red zone, and Alabama has to settle for a field goal, which they make. Which, I mean, let's be honest, that's not just there's no chip shots for Alabama in big games, but I think it's a field goal.
All right, I'm gonna go. This means for $100, PJ, you bet $100 on this, you could get $4,000.
Don't tell me that.
$4,000 on that safety.
That's $100 though. That
just bet up, put $100 down. Okay, well, if you put 10 down, you can get 400.
You basically have a 99% chance though of just being like
burning
$100.
Mike Greenberg said, if you can't just burn it, don't bet it.
That's why we shouldn't be betting.
Don't bet it. Lord knows I can't. But I'm gonna go touchdown. I think one way or the other. I think if Georgia gets down into, say, the 30s, right, and you're on the 32-yard line, and it's 4th and 3, first drive of the game, I think Georgia's probably going for it.
Do you think it's the same at like the 22?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah, because, I mean, Jack Peluzny can hit from there.
Yeah.
I just see that opening drive, if it's like short yardage situation, they're going for it, so that kind of skews it towards, if I'm going to bet on something, I think it's going to be a touchdown.
Okay. See, that's the thing. I'm betting on all this stuff. Like, I've played the game out in my head and how I feel like it's going to go, and I'm kind of betting all based on that. Yeah. They do, but they all, I don't know. Like, you can, every game is different. Every drive is different. You can have one of those drives where it's really solid, even from Alabama with all their playmakers and whatever. And then on 1st and 10, incomplete pass. 2nd and 10, holding. Like, you know what I mean? So, like,
I mean, the SEC championship started with a field goal.
Yeah. A slow snowball effect, right?
So you're going field goal?
I'm going field goal, yeah.
I'll go touchdown there. With that. We got more to come here on second down. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we got some of the player props to dive into here, but we do have another fun one to get into as well. And then, of course, done it to him all week. Why stop now? I have another just theory conversation.
I thought we were going to avoid that today.
No, we got a small one. Small theory conversation when we come back. If you want to get in on the action, you want to tell us what your prop bets would look like as we're picking here, 912-342-7184. Phone lines are always open here. Got another big show coming up on 3 and Out following us, of course. And then on Monday, the guys from 3 and Out will be at Coach's Corner in Savannah, leading you up to the national championship game between Alabama and Georgia. Coach's Corner going to have an oyster roast going that night. John Henderson and the guys up there at Coach's Corner always do an awesome job. All sports, all the time at Coach's Corner. So get out and see the guys from 3 and Out Monday from 3 to 6 p.m. And then, of course, in Savannah, the home broadcast of the Georgia Bulldogs coming up on Monday night. We got more to come here on Second Down, though. More prop bets coming your way. Second Down on ESPN Radio is presented to you by the Uniform Source. Christian Gokel thought I was alongside PJ Zuko, but as I sit here talking to you guys, listening to Creed, PJ Zuko has abandoned me. So we'll keep going. We've been diving through some of the prop bets for the national championship coming up on Monday afternoon, or Monday night, I should say. Pre-game coverage starts Monday afternoon. And again, the guys from 3 and Out will be live at Coach's Corner in Savannah starting at 3 o'clock as PJ Zuko makes his triumphant return, cup of coffee in hand as he does it.
Hey, how's it going?
You just didn't want to listen to Creed, did you?
No, I was actually really excited for Creed.
What happened?
I was back working.
This is work.
Yeah, I was doing something else for work.
Likely excuse. Anyway.
I mean, I had to get stuff ready for tomorrow.
You know, when people do the
I was just telling you the truth.
That usually means it probably wasn't that important.
I'm trying to. All right. Let's not give away all our secrets.
All right.
I mean, I'm trying to do work here, trying to do work back there. It is what it is.
Okay. Well, I'm going to keep doing work right here. Overtime. There are odds on this football game going to overtime. Obviously, the last time these two teams met in the national championship, we all remember how that one went in overtime. But as we're looking at it, the odds for it going to overtime plus 900. Is that enough to get PJ Zuko to throw some cheddar on it? That means for a $100 bet, you can win 900.
What about like $5?
I can tell you what
What do
a
I get
five,
for like $5?
let me see what a $5 bet would net you there. For
I mean,
$5, you can win 45.
Dude, let's go.
So throw it down there.
Let's go. No, this isn't going. No, it's not going overtime.
Okay,
no.
so if you wanted to bet the other way,
yeah,
it is minus 2,900
so
for the game not to go. So if you bet $100, you have a chance to win a cool $3.45.
Yeah,
if the game doesn't go to overtime.
Right. I'm just not betting on this one.
So which way you're going? Like if you had that, yes or no?
I mean the under. No, it's not. It's not going overtime.
Not going to overtime.
This one is
settled in regulation.
Yeah,
we're only going to need 60 minutes to figure this one out.
For sure.
All right, let's move to some of the player props here. I think this is going to be interesting. Jameson Williams, obviously, absolutely torched Georgia in the last game. 184 yards.
Not a typo. 7.
And 2 touchdowns. I also might be kind of blind, but here we are. 184 yards, 2 touchdowns. His over-under for receiving yards in this game, and mind you, John Mechie out, 123.5.
Goodness gracious, that's a lot. I mean, obviously, like you said, he made some big plays, had a ton of yards there that first time, and he's been torching everybody all year. I mean, but to not have that guy on the other, well, I mean, it's Alabama. They definitely have guys on the other side that can still do work. So, I mean, that's true. I'm still going to go the under. I think Georgia does a more valiant job of tying him up this time around and makes Alabama try and beat them with different guys, and not those broken coverages kind of that we saw, especially in the second quarter of the first time around. So I'll go with the under. Yeah,
Cincinnati, I guess you can say, held Jameson Williams to 62 yards on 7 receptions. So same amount of receptions, about 120 less yards in the game. And Jameson Williams did not find pay dirt, but also when you look up the stat sheet, Brian Robinson, 26 carries, 204 yards in that game, just setting all kinds of Alabama postseason records there. So
because they were surprised, man. They were surprised they ran the football on.
I don't think anybody was surprised, especially not if you listen to this show. It's literally all we were talking about leading up to that game. But I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking of the 2 long touchdowns he had. You obviously had the busted coverage that turned that game from 10-0 to 10-7 quick. And then you had Bryce Young just throwing a bomb. And it wasn't actually bad coverage. It's just James Williams had a half step on 2 Georgia DBs and hauls it in. And so he made up a lot of his ground on those 2 receptions. I think this is a really good line. I do think he breaks 100, but I'm going to take the under on that one. I just think with John Mechie being out, Georgia's going to be able to focus a lot on him.
Yeah.
And I also think you're going to see a different defensive strategy from Georgia. I think you're going to see them sending more guys, so the ball will have to come out quicker, maybe not giving as much time for those long developing routes for Jameson Williams. But I also think Bryce Young does a really good job when he's under pressure of checking down. And so you can see a spike in Brian Robinson's receptions, Slade Bolden, those guys, maybe the tight ends get a little bit more involved for Alabama here as well. So I'm gonna say under 123.5. All right, Bryce Young absolutely cooked Georgia in this game. 421 yards and 3 touchdowns in the SEC championship. His over-under for the national championship, 319.5.
Okay. I'll actually, this might be surprising considering what I've been saying all week about this game and what I just said about Williams. I'll go with the over.
I don't think it's surprising.
I'll go with the over, not by a ton, but I think, again, like I've been saying, this is one of those games where like Alabama's going to get theirs and they're going to find a counterpunch to Georgia and score some points. But it's not going to be enough, maybe a few drives end in a bad way and turnover on downs or something like that. But has over 320 yards passing, and maybe some of those come from checkdowns and tight end passes and things like that. But still doesn't come home with a win. But yes, over with the yardage.
I think it's going to be really hard for Alabama to run the ball in this game. Like Brian Robinson ain't going for 2 bills again. They're going to have to do it they're going to have to do it through the air. So I think it's a pretty easy over for me. I mean, win or lose, Bryce Young's going over 300 yards passing in this game. Yeah. It's just that's what their offense is going to be, is them through the air. And it's just how does Georgia counter that? Do they kind of play soft and let Alabama do whatever they want to between the 20s, or do they go attacking, sending 6-7 guys at Bryce Young? That's obviously remains to be seen. It's going to be really hard, regardless of what Georgia decides to do, for Alabama to run the football in this game. So, yeah, I think 319.5. I'm taking the over on that. All right, this next one's interesting. George Pickens obviously had the long reception against Alabama, but it's been kind of an interesting rotation, I guess, for him. He had 2 receptions for 41 yards and the long of 37 in the SEC championship. And it seems like every time he makes a play, they pull him out. I guess obviously just trying to keep him healthy. His over-under for this game, 63.5 receiving yards.
Really?
I think he had the 1 reception against Michigan, that kind of slant route, where it's still an amazing catch, but about like 5 yards.
Well, I think this offense obviously is turned into, while he's been out, has turned into an offense that doesn't just have to go to him for the big plays either, right? So, I will say on that, I'm going to go with over. I'm going to go with over. Maybe they use him a little bit more consistently. It is the last game of the year, right? Can't hold anything back, of course.
Oh, there we go.
Of course. But no, I think you see them go to him a little bit more, him in the ball game, in the action, in that rotation a little bit more as well. And he gets over 60. I'm not saying he's going to have 150 or 200 receiving yards, but between 75 and 100 for sure. Maybe even a touchdown.
Georgia just hasn't really used their receivers a ton.
Right.
And I'm trying to pull up the actual total receptions. Yeah, I mean, Brock Bowers is like head and shoulders above everyone else. Ladd McConkey, he has 30 receptions. He's the next closest, and he's 22 behind Brock Bowers.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, A.D. Mitchell, 27. James Cook, who's a running back, has 25. Jermaine Burton, who I guess is your biggest deep threat, has 24. I'd be curious how many times this year a Georgia receiver has gone over 63 yards,
right? Just
for the game, right?
Yeah. Understandable.
So I'm going to go with the under here. I'd say unless he busts like a long one,
I'd say maybe
you feel pretty safe with that bet.
Maybe a long one, maybe just 2 or 3 really solid, like 20 to 25 yard catches or something like that. Like I could see that happening.
I mean,
like you said,
now he lives for the postseason,
yeah.
Right? Like what he did against Cincinnati and what he did against Baylor. Like, dude lives for bowl games.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously they didn't use him a ton in the the Orange Bowl. Get my fruits mixed up there. So it's just I'm gonna go over. I don't think George Pickens is gonna be overly featured in this game. Can he be used?
Like maybe you see less of that with him making a big play and coming right out, and maybe we see more of, all right, let's ride the hot hand. This is the last game of the year. Like, now, obviously you're not sitting there saying, yeah, no holds barred, like throw everything, throw caution to the wind and get a kid hurt. Like, no, that's not what I mean. But I mean, you look at him and he's even more likely to be like, nah, coach, let's go. Like, keep me in there. Let's keep going.
I mean, it could be the last time we see him suiting up for Georgia. I want to go into Stetson Bennett here with his game logs because this next one, I think, is going to be really, if you're looking for a number that's going to determine how this goes, this is it. Stetson Bennett, over under 19.5 completions.
Ooh. That's completions, not attempts. Not attempts. I'll go with over. I'll go with over, but not by much. And that might sound like, I don't mean not by much in a way that he's going to throw like a lot of incompletions or anything like that. Like, I think for what needs to happen, what I think is going to happen in this game, he's going to.
Did I say completions or attempts?
You said completions.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. I think he's going to go for like 21 of 30 with a few hundred yards, but still, it's not going to be like game breaking. All those attempts are going to be within reason and not way too much at the end or at the beginning. Like, it's going to be balanced throughout the game. So I'd say over, but barely. Like, that's kind of right where I was thinking.
Prior to the SEC championship, where he was 29 of 48 for 340 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, can you tell me how many times this year Stetson Bennett completed 19 or more passes? Prior to the SEC championship.
Yeah, well, that line has to be a basis for something, right? And even in the big wins, like where we saw 60-something points, I mean, there were some games he only had like 9 completions and threw like 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, so again, prior to the SEC championship, can you tell me how many times he had 19 or more completions?
Just this year? Yeah. Or I'll say 3.
That'd be 0.
Wow.
Heading into the SEC championship, the most completions Stetson Bennett had was 17 in the win over Tennessee. You got 13, 10, 14, 14, 7, 11, 1, 10.
Yeah. Huh. I mean,
I think when he starts creeping up. Now, I will say this, in the bucking the trend kind of, he had 20 completions in the Orange Bowl.
Right. And I'd say that, like, you look at obviously with the Alabama game, he threw 48 pass attempts in the first place. That's way too much. Like, that cannot happen again. And it can't get close to that.
I will say this, the 30 passing attempts in the Orange Bowl is the most outside of the SEC championship. The second most outside of that was 29 against Tennessee.
Also, though, like, let's think back to the regular season. Like, how many times did he throw those completions in the first half, and then the second half they didn't need to throw any, like, they didn't need to pass at all. They were up by 20 or 30. Like,
I'd say, like, the games that were actually kind of close going into the fourth quarter, I'd say Auburn.
Yeah.
I think that was still a 2-score game going into the fourth quarter, so he still had to sling it around a little bit. He had 21 attempts in that game. I'd say Kentucky, that one was still relatively close going into the fourth. And he had
like 20, an arm's length. Yeah.
He had 20 attempts in that game, so it's gonna be interesting. I think if you start creeping past that 19, that means things probably aren't going the way Georgia wants them to go. All right, we're gonna do one more here before we take a quick break here. Zamir White, over under 59.5 yards in this game.
Total.
For rushing.
Or just rushing. Okay.
He had 27 the last time these two teams met.
Yeah, and obviously, the running game in general needs to be more of an impact, but I'll go under, but that's not a bad thing. Like, I'll go under, but because I think they're going to utilize the other backs as well, and they're going to utilize Zamir White in the passing game and the other backs in the passing game too. So kind of like that kind of Michigan type game plan that they had. So give me under, but that's not indicative of like the final score, right? That doesn't mean I think they lose.
I will say 2 things here. I think if it is over, you're feeling very good.
Yeah,
as a Georgia fan, so either that means he broke one or he's just gapping Alabama.
Yeah, and you're probably running away with it.
But I don't think you need Zamir White to go over 60 yards to win this football game.
Right.
I think more so, and our good friend over at Dogs Daily on Sports Illustrated, Brooks Austin, pointed this out, the Georgia offense is better when James Cook is the featured back. So if you get James Cook rolling, whether that's through the air or on the ground, those little swing passes you like to do to him, that I think if you want to look at total yards, I think you want James Cook going over 100 yards. So I think either way this game goes, unless they just use Zamir White as like the cigar and you're just beating Alabama in the second half and you're pounding the clock away.
Just pummel them.
Yeah, I'm going to take the under on this one as well. We got a couple more to go. We're going to take a quick break here on second down. We'll come back. We'll get the last 2 or 3 of these, and then I'm going to pose a question to PJ that'll make him question a lot of things. We'll be right back here on second down on ESPN Radio. Second Down on ESPN Radio is presented to you by the Uniform Source. Chris Yokel alongside PJ Zuko going through these national championship prop bets with you. Got a couple more to go through. PJ, which player scores the first touchdown? I'm not giving you any odds. I'm not giving you anything. I'm just if PJ Zuko's looking at it. Which player scores first?
Dang it. Okay.
Was Slade Bolden for Alabama in the semifinal,
right.
and Brock Bowers for Georgia.
Yeah. I think James Cook.
That's an interesting one.
James Cook. Either a pass out the backfield, or you need to punch it in there at the goal line, and maybe Zabir White has been carrying the load the whole drive. He needs a breather, and it's one of those where James White comes in and finishes it off. Or James Cook, excuse me. Yeah, James Cook.
I want to throw one out there for you. Big Darnell Washington.
How about that?
I think Georgia gets in the red zone. I think they go with that 3 tight set again. I think Big Darnell Washington scores the first touchdown for Georgia in a kind of a repeat look at of the SEC championship.
Yeah. Like play action pass down by the goal line.
They kind of did a little pop pass to him in the SEC championship. Give me Big Darnell Washington. All right, more total yards, Brian Robinson or James Cook? Brian Robinson, of course, coming off a 200-yard performance in the Cotton Bowl, and James Cook 100-plus yards in the Orange Bowl.
I'll go Brian Robinson. I'll go Brian Robinson because I think Georgia has more like utility backs that they can use. I think it's going to be more of a balanced effort through the air and on the ground for Georgia's running back game. I think for Alabama, it's Brian Robinson. He's the guy. Now, I don't think he's going to have, blow up, but I think balanced on checkdowns from Bryce Young because he's not finding a lot over the top, and some running game impact from Robinson. I'll go with him.
I'm going to go with James Cook in this one, more so for what Georgia's defense is capable of. Just going back and looking at it, Hassan Haskins from Michigan had 39 yards in this game, and a lot of that came on like a 19-yarder that he busted. The next leading rusher was the backup quarterback with 24 yards, J.J. McCarthy. Donovan Edwards had 16 yards. Corum, who everyone was in love with, had 13 yards. I'm going to take James Cook just because of his ability to catch a football and how dynamic he is. I'll go with James Cook. All right, who's the MVP in this game, PJ?
Who is the MVP in this game? I want to give it to a defensive player.
Do it.
I want to give it to a defensive player. I really do. And I would love it to be Jordan Davis. But
you want a hot take? I know we don't do that here, but you want a hot take?
What's that?
I don't think Jordan Davis is going to be one of the top 8 most impactful defensive players for Georgia in this game.
Well, there you go. I'll go with Nakobe Dean. I think he comes up with some big plays, maybe a turnover here and there. A turnover here and there. It kind of puts him over the edge. He's in the backfield or spying Bryce Young all night. Yeah. Give me Nakobe Dean.
All right. I think it's James Cook.
Yeah. No, I'm fine.
I think it's James Cook. I think whether it's maybe put him back for a kick return, he does something big there through the air, or he busts a run. It's just I think James Cook is, outside of Brock Bowers, I guess, Georgia's best offensive weapon. And I'll hear arguments for both of those guys. So I think James Cook is the MVP in this game. All right, you ready to talk some theory?
Yeah, for sure.
You ready to just pontificate about some stuff?
Let's try and make this as interesting as possible.
All right, so they're playing this game in Indianapolis, and a lot of our friends from the TV news networks are up there. I'm seeing some ESPN coverage as well. It's cold, snowy, icy on the roads.
Which, hey, to some people, that's very nice.
Sure, but when it comes to hosting an event, not entirely the weather you want to see. It took the NFL waiting for Atlanta to build an entirely new stadium before they would even bring the Super Bowl back to Atlanta, because when they brought the Super Bowl back to it originally, it was snowing.
Yeah.
So they want a place that's nice and warm and can sell some tickets and sell out hotel rooms and stuff like that, right? It's in Indianapolis. Nothing against the city of Indianapolis, but Indianapolis not the most fun place on earth to be in January.
That's true. Just
right?
Indianapolis kind of by itself.
I'm going to put this out there to you. I think the national championship, and I started at 2, but I've been moved to 3, should be rotated between 3 cities.
I like where you're going. going.
Pasadena
Yes.
with the Rose Bowl.
You could stop there and I'd be fine with it.
Right. I think it's one of those things like the World Cup where you have to go away from it to miss it.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right. You need that separation to miss it. So when you go back, it's that much more special.
Yeah.
So the Orange Bowl is the one that I've been talked into, which I know it's an NFL stadium. Right.
Yeah.
Hard Rock.
Lose me a little bit.
But it's still Miami.
It is.
And who would not love to go to Miami? And you get
still the orange.
And you get both sides of the country. Right? You get LA and you get Miami.
True.
Right? So you're being fair year to year.
That's a very good point.
The one that I think is the other lock, and just talking about college football history, is the Sugar Bowl. Playing in New Orleans.
I think
you are in the heart of
that's really solid.
Yeah, you're in the heart of college football territory. It's in a amazing party city. Throw that bad boy in New Orleans, and I think you should just rotate between those 3. And people are like, but Christian, what about the North? It's in January.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's in January.
Oh, that's fine.
If they played this thing in March, I'd be like, all right, maybe we'll go up north a little bit. But I'm talking about cities you want to go to, destination cities. And of course, this is never going to happen because it's just always going to go to the highest bidder. I think the next 2 that they're talking about is Vegas and Dallas.
Right. Like, why are we going to Vegas, man?
Those are the next 2 cities they're talking about adding.
Well, I don't want to see that. Like, I don't. Sure, for the visitors and whatever, they can have a bunch of fun, lose all their money in Vegas, but like, there's no history or tradition there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, I'm not with you. The only one I would add, and I think a lot of people forget about this stadium, and I think maybe you won't even really, because I get where you're coming from. Like, it has to be able to sell tickets. That's what it's all about. Like, you want to have to, even if you're not a fan of one of the teams, you want to have to, like,
fan base has already spent money going to one location.
Yeah. You want to go there for the event and also all the other events around the city as well. But one stadium I think is forgot about a lot, the old Cotton Bowl.
Okay,
I want to see that stadium more appreciated.
I was going to say that,
you know?
but the infrastructure around your stadium has already had them take your bowl game away from you. You are literally called the Cotton Bowl, and they don't play the Cotton Bowl at your stadium.
I know, but they still play Texas.
They sure do.
Texas, Oklahoma.
The Red River rivalry.
It's good enough for the state fair. Why isn't it good enough for this?
I'm with you. And while we're at it, let's throw one at Legion Field. But I think you have to have the current infrastructure.
Oh, man. I'm gonna get kicked off the show if I say that. Let's make the Field of Dreams a football stadium and play it there.
That'd be cool.
In the outfield.
Yep, I'm with you. That'd be interesting. You have to cut a lot more corn, but we should be able to get it done.
Then let's, GoFundMe page or something. Let's build the infrastructure for it and bring it to the old Cotton Bowl. Not Jerry World.
Yeah, no, see, like that, and the same thing. I'm from Atlanta. Having the national championship in Atlanta, they didn't build that stadium to be an awesome atmosphere. They built that stadium to sell as many tickets as possible. And the thing I kind of hate about it is there could be 80,000 people in Mercedes-Benz, and you only see half of them.
Yep.
Because the other 40,000 are at like the different bars and lounges and clubs inside the stadium, right? It's the same thing that's happening in Vegas. You can have that stadium packed, but honestly, the MLS games that they play in there have more people in the seats during the game than the NFL games. So antiseptic is the best way to kind of put it.
Stop going to a football game to not watch the football game.
Correct. So it is what it is. They didn't build that stadium for the atmosphere during the game. They built it for getting as many people in there to spend money as possible, which is business. It is what it is. But nothing beats the Rose Bowl. I love the Sugar Bowl, and then I'm never going to argue with somebody if they want to go to Miami. So those are my 3. I think you should just rotate it between those 3, play the national championships there, not at Santa Clara, for the love of God. We're way over here. We got to take a quick break. We'll come back with more right here on Second Down. Second Down on ESPN Radio is presented to you by the Uniform Source. Got a big show coming up today on 3 and Out. The guys obviously get you ready for the national championship between Alabama and Georgia. DJ Shockley, 2005 SEC championship game MVP, now a member of Fox 5 and the UGA Radio Network, will be joining the guys coming up at 3:20. DJ Jones, 1980 national championship winner, will be joining immediately following. We got 2 DJs. PJ in the first segment, also BJ on the show. A lot of J's on 3 and Out today. And then, of course, we'll hear from Kevin Marshall, FCS Radio Nation, getting ready for another national championship, North Dakota State versus Montana State for the FCS National Championship. All that coming up next right here on ESPN Radio.